Randy, you look a little different.
Randy, you've been hitting that tanning bed.
You know,
the human wallet over there.
You know, when you have the president we do, that you just really kind of got to go and get your spray tan on. You know what I'm saying? So I'm looking at shades. It's like me.
I know he's a big influence on you, Randy.
Oh, yes. This is what bonus content is, apparently.
Dude, you want that? You want that dance, dude? You want that shoulder shrug?
Get it.
Dude, that's my name.
I've heard from an old sage that it's all in the shoulders when it comes to dancing.
Look at that rhythm.
Soju's all about shoulders, baby. Shoulder soju is what they call me. Shoulder stains.
What up, nerds? Welcome to another multicultural episode of Straight Chilling. My name's Bob, and I'll be your host for this evening. This is episode number 221, recorded on Thursday, June 27th, 2019. Tonight, we're going to be talking about the Wailing. Before we get into it, let me introduce everyone else on the show. First up, calling in from Washington, D.C., our boy, Randy Gandy G. Landy. What's up?
Howdy do, everybody. Your boy's a little lit at the moment.
Howdy do.
We are 1 minute in, lit.
The ding dang dong. Yes.
Hotel.
I've been drinking old fashions out of a tiki mug all night, so I feel pretty good. Feeling pretty
like an
loose.
adult.
I'm going to be saying a lot of things that will get me fired.
We only have 1 hour and 59 minutes to go.
Last but not least, calling in from Southern Korea, our boy Soju. What's up, Soju?
Annyeonghaseyo! Itamen soju stains! Yo! I want to see if I could do it in like the song.
Ooh, shoulder stains going crazy on us.
What up? It's your boy Soju.
Are you okay? Do we need to call an ambulance?
Dude, I'm just doing my sweet shoulder move.
Can I do that sweet dislocated shoulder move?
Are you possessed?
Can I pop my shoulder back in real quick? Dude, for bonus content, if you want to see your boy shoulder stains, kick it. YouTube.com/straight chilling podcast.
I would like to see a shoulder kick. That would be interesting.
I've never seen that before, I can honestly say. A hot mess we are. Let's get in some housekeeping, gentlemen. You only got a few days left to vote on the July poll pick, the theme of which are movies that I hate, and the movies that are up there to vote between are Human Centipede 2, The Greasy Strangler, and Halloween Resurrection. In an interesting turn of events, some people changed their votes.
Halloween
from The Greasy Strangler. Didn't we all like petition for The Greasy Strangler?
Like, kind of, but also it's not good. So
yeah. That is the trap we have fallen in.
As opposed to Halloween Resurrection, which, all things told, is a masterpiece.
The thing is Bob fucked up the
train wreck.
Bob fucked up the first one so bad we all felt like we had to overcompensate to make this one work. So
picked real bad. Halloween Resurrection is currently in the lead, and if you support us on Patreon at the $5 level or above, you can vote on that.
So
you have
all
until July 1st. Get your votes in.
So everyone wait, and then I'll switch over to Human Centipede 2. Really fuck us. We're like, there's nowhere we're watching that movie.
Have you been voting, Juice?
No, I can't access our Patreon.
Oh,
the host of this show, do not have access.
I mean, you do. You just don't get on it.
Heck me.
I was gonna say, like, we can't be voting in our own race blood. That's some gerrymandering ass bullshit.
And I'll know if you do. Yeah. I see the names. I know.
Oh, I couldn't if I wanted to. That's my point.
You 100% could, but I'd know. Also, quick shout outs. We got a brand new Patreon supporter this week. Big thanks to Pia for supporting us on Patreon.
Pia. Let's go, man. Thanks for your support.
Thank you. Thanks for helping us keep the
There's a lot of shoulder going.
So, yeah, man, I don't know. Grooving. We're all grooving now. Juice, how's the YouTube and the Twitching?
Good. I finished up Layers of Fear, which apparently I inspired Randy to play. Yeah, I finished it. Have you finished it, Randy?
I think 1 or 2 more. I'm on chapter 4 or 5.
Okay, yeah. So see, that's where I came into this last week. Like I was only had like 1 box left to unlock. So yeah, I finished it up. I haven't uploaded it to the YouTube yet, but that will be up probably tonight. So yeah, it was good. Great game. Great game.
I love, like, I don't know if this is like a common trope in horror games now, but it's not survival horror so much. Like, it's not
it's just like exploring, you
exactly
mean?
like when you die, it's not really dying. Like that sort of thing. Like it's much more like traveling down a river as opposed to sort of like, building a dam. You know what I mean? Like it takes less like planning and things like that, which I like. I like letting it wash over me. As far as horror games, I've never seen one like that of my own. So
it's like participating in a horror movie. It's so fucking cool. It's just longer, it took 3 sessions. The first 2 I played an hour and a half. The last one I maybe wasn't even quite an hour yet, so it wasn't too bad. Whatever, really great game, really fun. And apparently it has like multiple endings, so I might just be playing it again.
Oh, does it?
You see me on Twitch.
Definitely like missed some key things.
Yeah. But so that's cool. Yeah, so check us out, twitch.tv/Straight Chilling Podcast. We do a horror video game every month. I do live streams, and then everything's uploaded to YouTube. If you want to check that out, youtube.com/Straight Chilling Podcast. And next month, I think we're going to try to get some Friday the 13th going. It's summertime. Yes. Almost Halloween season for us here at the Chilling Crew. And just like 2 weeks.
1 week. 1 week away.
We're 1 week from Halloween season. You heard it here first. But so yeah, if you want to check this out, we've got games all the way back from January, and we'll be playing Friday the 13th next month with your boy Bob. We'll finally be getting a sex box
Blurb.
At Blurb. So we're gonna get that going. That should be exciting. And then I'm just gonna all start picking like co-op games from now on, Bob. You're locked into this now.
Oh shit! It's all downhill.
Co-op.
I'm a gamer now.
Bob.
Oh no.
Dude, you haven't been a gamer since the old N64 days, huh?
Those were the days.
That is the truth.
The Banjo-Kazooie days.
What?
So check us out. And that, I believe, is all of Soju's housekeeping.
Cool. Yeah, if you're unaware, spooky season starts by our calendar on July 5th. After the 4th of July, the next big holiday is Halloween.
The next holiday.
So we're all in. July 5th. Is it early? You bet your ass it is.
The founding of this country can suck it. Sorry, Thanksgiving. Eat butts, because it's Halloween season.
What?
Oh, shit. The last bit of housekeeping we have is another reminder. We got a live show coming up Wednesday, July 17th, 2019, here in Jacksonville at lovely Sunray Cinema. We're going to be showing Sleepaway Camp at 7 o'clock sharp. It's going to be followed by a live show. We're going to be talking about Sleepaway Camp. We're going to be joined by the lovely Anthony from Something Ghoulish. It's going to be a good time. We've got posters designed by Randy Getty, G. Landy. We're going to be selling. We're going to have some free giveaways. Not to mention the dopest popcorn in the state. It's going to be
damn. We just keep getting like
yeah,
they're making all kinds of promises.
The state.
The
world.
Best popcorn on this planet.
It is really good. So come hang out with us. Tickets are now on sale. If you're looking for a link, we've got it posted on our Facebook page, our Instagram page, and also just sunraycinema.com. You can find it there too. So get your ticks while they last. Let's go ahead and get into what we've been watching this week, gentlemen's. Randy, what you been watching?
A few things. One thing I watched was a movie called Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, which is a classic of early or like 60s cinema. And it's just sort of like a movie you always hear the name of, but you don't know much about, or I didn't. And I went and watched it. It's an adapted from a stage play, and it's got Elizabeth Taylor in it, and it's like a fucking great movie for its time. It's very, very blunt and very like. It's about a couple that just hate each other so much, and they're just extremely drunk, and they have guests over, and it's all in one room for the most part, and they just fucking like tank each other's lives in a matter of like 2 hours. It's really fucking fun to watch. Honestly, it's very stressful. It's like the worst dinner party you could ever be invited to, basically. So that was great. On the opposite side of the spectrum, I watched Thor Ragnarok, which I did not enjoy because at the time I was getting a cavity filled at the fucking dentist. So I got to hear a bunch of Taika Waititi gags while I'm getting my shit drilled. It was not fun. Other than that, some TV stuff that I was watching. Yeah, no, that was fucking awful. I fucking hate the dentist. I'm not gonna lie. As much as I love Little Shop of Horrors, it's a little too close for home. But I also have been watching a couple TV shows. One is Big Little Lies, which I mentioned last week on HBO, which we finished the first season, and I gotta say, I'm pretty much hook, line, and sinker for this show. It's a great fucking show. The season finale was pretty fucking shocking, like in some capacities. Like it's taken a show that basically I would have described on episode 2 as like Pretty Little Liars, but for adults with adult themes, which I can confidently say is true because certified big Pretty Little Liars fan Becky agreed with me on that. But then like once you sort of like get deeper into it, there's some very brutal things happening. There's some like really honestly like the central mystery of the show is very, very interesting. Or like it comes around as like it's just very intriguing. And then on top of that, you've got some fucking great performances and some great camera work. So like it's got a lot going for it and not a whole lot of detractions from me. So I recommend that. I'm going into season 2 pretty soon here. Which it's in the throes of right now. And then the last thing I've been watching has been a show that I slept on for a while. I saw like an episode but never followed up on, called The Last Man on Earth. You guys remember this show with
oh yeah.
I've just seen a lot of it. Yeah.
Have you?
It's good.
I've
what
been like
season are they up to now?
There were 4. I think it's over now.
Oh shit. Okay.
But I mean, I feel like I heard that, but I don't know that for sure. But I'm on about midway through season 2, just like shotgunning it while I do my animation work and things like that. So it's fucking hilarious. That show really hits that absurd comedy like bone for me. It's so fucking funny. Was it Will Forte? I feel like I'm forgetting. That's his name, right? Will
Yeah,
Forte?
that's it. Yeah.
I don't know why I'm like completely shitting the bed with his name, but yeah, Will Forte is like so fucking enigmatic and fun to watch. When he like loses his shit, there's nobody funnier to watch when they're losing their shit than Will Forte. I'll stand by that. So I mean, and that's what like at least the first season is entirely him just losing his shit 100% of the time, and season 2 is a lot more of that too, as well as a bunch of like extended stuff. So I'm enjoying the fuck out of that as well. So I'm hoping to like wrap that up within the next few weeks. Like I say, I watch while I'm working, so it shouldn't be too long.
That was one of those shows where like I thought it was really funny and really well done, but also the type of situations and I guess comedy also kind of makes me feel uncomfortable. Like where I'm like, oh shit.
Like, I'm kind of like shocked that was a network show. Like it's like they say they don't curse. They say like, oh, fart and shit like that. Like they don't curse at all, but like the situations in it are very like troubling in a lot of ways. Like not all of them, obviously. It's a lot of silly stuff too. But like you got like it's a show called Last Man on Earth where Will Forte is the last man on Earth, and he's like just shitting in pools and like masturbating around the clock, and like that's how the show opens. The show opens with masturbating around the clock.
The margarita pool, I love that.
The margarita pool.
I love it. He just lays in it and drinks it.
God,
that is like pure hedonism. So,
how long would it take you to make a goddamn margarita? It would get so hot.
It would. Oh my god!
It would just be warm. So like it's not iced. There's no. I guess there's no ice.
I mean, you could. Well, oh no, not yeah. No, I guess you could.
There's no power in that world.
And he's in like what, like Arizona or something, or like
yeah.
God, that's
so hot. That's right. His actual pool, he just like uses as a toilet. And he's got the mini pool he fills with margarita and just like lays in it and drinks.
And he's got a trash pool. Don't forget about the trash pool. Very fucking funny show. I'm really sad that I slept on, to be honest. So, recommend.
Juice, what you been watching?
Well, I watched a little movie called Child's Play, 2019, early
Yeah,
release.
what's that about?
Got a little mini cast on it, and I'm not a proud man, you know. I'm humble. I'm willing to admit that I was wrong about this movie. I went in, you know, expecting very poor results from another 90s horror reboot or whatever, but it actually wasn't too bad. Yeah, or
Really?
yeah, okay. Yeah, late 80s. It was, so I mean, it's not amazing. So, and that's, I feel like we're getting a little dangerous because we did a mini cast on it, and like the whole time, because I, you know, going into it, I kept like shitting on it, like, oh, the doll looks terrible, and it's still, the doll kind of doesn't look good, but, and all that kind of stuff. But really, I went in with such low expectations that I came out being like, hey, that was actually a pretty fun movie or whatever. So yeah, wasn't too bad, man. And I mentioned it in the mini cast. I'm kind of looking forward to maybe rewatching it around the Halloween season. Like, I think it doesn't like specifically have any like Halloween
You want
things
to
in it.
rewatch it, huh?
Yeah, I would be fine rewatching it. Yeah, it's kind of fun.
I'd watch it again.
It's kind of fun.
That seems to not be the consensus around the world, but I
Yeah,
appreciate it.
well,
Yeah.
I have
it's
not
actually
listened to your
higher-
mini episode
Yeah,
because
the
I have
mini cast.
respect.
What? The actually, even the Rotten Tomatoes was higher than we expected. So actually, I think, I don't know. Yeah. So I watched that, and then I've also been watching this YouTube channel that is GOT Rewind, where they specifically focus on like a character, and you can watch all their scenes. So somebody has like cut up like only the scenes that person's in, and maybe even like somebody like talking about that person. And some of it, a lot of it is like these like characters that were like kind of that you didn't like, that over like several seasons you end up like had like, oh, almost an hour's worth of screen time, but in 5 seasons, like it's pretty minimal, but you get to like actually like stay with this person or whatever and see how they influence things in ways that you didn't really realize because you're just watching them straight through. And you're like even Bolton, like Roose Bolton, like when he first came into the show, like you don't really like recognize like him as a person until like the Red Wedding.
Oh,
and then like afterwards, but like showing like his first scenes and like his interactions with like Rob and stuff like that. So they focus like it's got the bigger characters too, but it's cool to like pick out these like smaller ones. You're like, oh yeah, that guy, like the dude who like cuts off Jamie's hand, like it shows like all of his scenes and stuff, and you're like, oh shit,
that guy's
like,
in a lot of it too.
Yeah, you're like, oh, he was actually like in a lot of scenes, and he actually like did a lot of things. So it's been pretty interesting, you know, getting that GOT fix a little bit. God, that show is like so good back. Like, I didn't have as big a problem with season 8, but like watching those like all like just watching like old scenes, I'm like, holy shit, this show is like superb. Like some of like the dialogue and situations that people were in were like fucking great, man. So yeah, been watching that. I think that's about it though. Yeah.
Cool. I watched a Vinegar Syndrome joint this week.
Okay, about one of your 7 pick?
Yes.
Okay, thank God.
I watched a movie called Demonoid.
Okay.
And this movie is like the biggest nothing of a movie I think I've ever seen.
Okay.
Pretty bad.
Why do you say that, Bob?
So there's this demon creature whose hand is like cut off, and you never really get to see like the full creature. It's mainly just about this possessed hand, which in this movie is just a rubber hand that they just kind of throw it around, like as if it was flying on its own. They just kind of like pitch it around. It just looks terrible, and you're sort of like expecting in the third act for this like full creature to like form and like kick some ass, and you just don't really get it. And it's just this little hand, and the hand follows people around and, you know, kills people or what. It's rough, man. it's not a great movie.
So would you say it was not worth the $35 steel box?
50, Justin. It's Canadian pricing.
$8,000. No, they're from Connecticut. Vinegar Syndrome, that is. No, I didn't pay that much for it, but I wouldn't recommend
I know you didn't.
I wouldn't recommend it. I also watched The Prodigy from earlier this year. It's sort of like the
How was
Omen
that?
kind of joint. Dude, it was actually like really getting under my skin. Like certain scenes were legitimately creeping me out and
I have a
like
Korean
making me
poster
feel
for
weird.
that movie, but I didn't actually see it in Korea.
I would recommend it, actually. It's not like gonna blow your mind. There's a little bit more to it than just like this kid is super smart.
Yeah.
You know, there's a little bit more going on. But he does like some genuinely horrifying things, and I found it to be pretty
Does he
bothersome.
take his shoes off in an airplane?
He does. That son of a bitch.
That's shock.
I recommend it though. I think it's worth like a rental if you can. I don't know. I'm sure it's on Amazon for like, I don't know, $5 or whatever. It'd be worth it. I think it's
cool.
It's pretty solid. Pretty solid.
I like the artwork surrounding it.
Yeah. I kind of.
That's what you're buying. That's the $35 right there.
That's exactly right. It's a work of art.
You get in that booklet with all the lyrics in it, you know.
I want to know.
Can't get that anywhere.
I want to know every word in every song from
Dream,
Track. So I'm gonna buy the physical copy. I also watched Nightmare Cinema, the Mick Garris anthology. It's actually, well, he directed, like, he kind of put it together. He directed one of the segments, and then there's 4 other directors involved, Joe Dante being one of them. This was kind of a disappointment to me. It's really easy for anthologies to just not really work out, and I don't know that this one worked out. Like the separate segments, most of them were decent, but watching them like one after the other, I just like I had such a hard time like really paying full attention to it. It kept losing me.
Yeah.
One of the segments was very Lynchian, like a racer head Lynchian, like black and white, like it looked like David Lynch fucking made it, but he didn't. And that just didn't like blend well at all with like one of these other like demon segments. And I don't know, they just didn't. There's like a slasher segment that felt really rote to me. I just didn't like
Anthologies, man.
Yeah. I don't know. The Lynchian one was probably my favorite, actually, and that was the one that definitely felt like it didn't belong, but it was intriguing at least.
Randy,
I don't know.
Turned up.
Yeah.
6 to midnight, baby.
6 to midnight. I don't know that I recommend Nightmare Cinema, unfortunately, because Mick Garris is fucking cool, and I want to recommend his shit, but it wasn't for me, anyways. I can definitely say that. And also, last thing I want to talk about, I rewatched Thirst. Because it just came out on Blu-ray, and I love that movie, so I bought it. You can add that.
Still haven't seen it, but I've been meaning.
It's another Korean joint, and I hadn't seen it in several years. But it as I was watching it, it reminded me so much of Audition, because we had just done an episode on Audition. It's fresh on the brain. And it would be like such a perfect double bill with Audition, man. It's just like a twisted vampire love story, but it's like, I don't know. It's Park Chan-wook, so the dude that did Old Boy.
Yeah.
And it's just got kind of that tone to it, and it's like horrific and bloody, but also like kind of sweet at times. And it's just it's a good fucking movie. It's shot beautifully. I really enjoy it. So
good old Korea, man.
Yeah, if you're wanting some more Korean cinema, I recommend Thirst. It's kind of like a weird vampire tale. If you want to see a vampire priest, check it out.
I want to see that.
Show me a now.
Siri, show me a vampire priest.
No.
So that's what I've been watching.
We could have watched Queen of the Damned, Bob.
My God.
If you weren't such a damn slacker.
That movie's so good. Let's go ahead and talk about the main event, The Wailing. Let's start off with the back of the box. All righty, the back of the box. So The Wailing from 2016. This is a Korean film directed by Hong Jin-na. I think I said that right. So the plot synopsis is as follows. Soon after a stranger arrives in a little village, a mysterious sickness starts spreading. A policeman drawn into the incident is forced to solve the mystery in order to save his daughter. So The Wailing. Had you guys seen this before? what was kind of in your brains going into it, and would you recommend people check it out? Justin, why don't you kick us off?
I first watched this movie this past Christmas season when I was in the States for Christmas vacation. And it was on Netflix, and I had mentioned before that like when I got back to Korea, it wasn't on Netflix. I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
So that was the first time I had seen it, and since then I think rewatching it for the cast, it was either my third or fourth watch again, so in about 6 months. And I love this movie. And one of the things is like one of my favorite horror movies too has since become The Witch. And it has, so if you are familiar with The Witch, if you like The Witch, it's very much that flavor of or type of kind of cinema experience to me, like film experience. And but also it's got some kind of distinct elements of like Korean film making as well. So I love it. This was my pick for the June poll pick or whatever.
Yeah.
And it is it's also like really highly regarded in Korea. And so it's a pretty popular movie even amongst like just horror fans in general. So yeah, I would recommend it. I love it.
All right. Randy, what about you?
I knew very, very little about this movie going in this week. Pretty much most of what I had heard was from Juice, and it was not anything substantial. It was really just, you got to see this movie sort of thing. It's sort of a general praise surrounding it. Juice probably being the loudest voice of that. But I mean, I know people like this movie, and so I was, it was something that I had considered watching in the past, but just never got to. So I was happy to watch it, and it hit me pretty good. I would definitely also recommend it. It's a commitment time wise. It's 2.5 hours, which, it's sad to say is like, American movies are getting shorter and shorter to match our attention spans, but this movie, it's not beholden to American tastes, obviously. So it really blows itself out to both its detriment and its benefit, I would say. But overall, like that, setting that aside, like it's a good watch. I would recommend it.
Cool. Yeah, I'd seen maybe about half of this movie when it was on Netflix at some point last year because I was hearing a lot of good things about it, and I just never got around to finishing it. It was incredibly long, and that probably had something to do with it. And I'm kind of glad that it ended up winning the June poll pick, just because like I felt like I probably needed some closure on it. Maybe I never would have gotten it if it hadn't won. So I'm happy that I did sit through it and I gave it my full attention. Was it fully worth the runtime? I don't know that I would say that. I think there's a lot of stuff that they probably could have left out, which we can get into a little bit. But overall, I was pretty pleased with this movie, and I would recommend it, especially because they just added it. It's no longer on Netflix, but they just added it to Shudder, so it's streaming on Shudder.
Oh, there you go.
So you can check it out there if you are interested, and I think it'd be worth your time. So let me drop that spoiler warning, and then we'll get into the nitty gritty. There she goes. So this little joint starts off with some words from the Bible. Luke,
the Bible verse.
37 through 29, or 37 through 39, rather. I can read what I wrote. So it says, they were startled and frightened, thinking they saw a ghost. He said to them, "Why are you troubled? And why do doubts rise in your mind? Look at my hands and my feet. It is I myself. Touch me and see. A ghost does not have flesh and bones, as you see I have." So that...
the devil is a motherfucking liar.
From Jesus. Actually, that's Jesus talking.
The devil?
I believe that's when Jesus is resurrected.
Is it?
That verse is from when Jesus, and they're like, "You're dead," and he's like, "I'm not dead. See, touch my hands and my feet."
Yeah, that makes sense. I wasn't sure where that came from.
I legitimately didn't know that.
No, okay, so
I was really referring to like the what happens within the movie that's alluding to. But
yeah.
Right.
So here's the thing to preface this movie. It is long, and I love the response that I got from Bob because this movie has this general like sense. So I want to talk about like how the movie just like plays out regularly, but like I have taken more notes than any movie I've ever taken, and some of it is to kind of combat the general like consensus that you expect from this movie. Oh, this is how the movie ends, so this was the result or whatever. So I have some things to kind of combat that, just a kind of expectation. But then I also have a lot of things that to mention, like why I think some decisions were made, like from a cultural standpoint, and like how they might kind of play into this movie and give it more context, maybe to some things that might not seem very clear from the beginning. Again, let me go ahead and preface this by saying from my perspective. So I probably will get some things fucking wrong, and these are just things that I feel like I've seen or I feel like I've heard or experienced while being in Korea. So I'm just like pulling from that. So I could be completely fucking wrong on some of this shit, but I really did try to put in like my work, and like I said, this is probably I think my fourth watch this. So I'm really like trying. I've simmered in it a bit. So I'm gonna be trying to like pull some stuff out that might be interesting.
So you're bringing the perspective of an American who's been living in Korea for like 2 years now. So you've kind of got a decent foothold in the culture, but it's not like you were born and raised there.
Yeah, it's not like we are being oppressed.
Meanwhile, Bob and I are bringing the perspective of two white boys with our thumbs in our assholes watching some shit we don't understand.
That is
very
right.
Turned up. I said one who is particularly turned up.
We'll just keep drinking, and then everything
sipping that tiki.
Juice, this is your chance. Don't blow it, man.
Dude, I gotta represent. I got it.
Korean culture. This is all on your shoulders.
I'm bringing it,
man.
Your students are counting on you.
So I will say though that this was my pick, and we went camping with some friends when this poll was going on. I don't know, a couple months back, and I was just talking to them about the cast. Most of them were Korean, and I was talking about we're doing a Korean pick, and we all pick a movie. And before they even knew what the movie was, they all were like, "You have to pick this movie," and it is The Wailing, which
That's pretty cool.
They all said it, and I was like, yeah, that's what I picked. And they were like, it's, by the way, in Korean, this movie is called Goksang. Yeah, Goksang. And The Wailing, they were all like, oh, Goksang. I was like, yeah, that's what I'm at. And so I was really happy that it won. It is like really like highly regarded and like respected. And they're not even like particular like big horror fans, but that's kind of the thing about Korea is it's not as like niche, I guess, like horror in general. It's not like this like subset of film. It's like every year, and they mostly watch like horror films in the summertime, which is weird. So like big blockbuster like Korean films, and they usually have like 2 or 3 a year, and it's kind of like a dedicated like thing. Like this is the horror movie like of the year,
That's pretty cool.
So it like comes out, and it's usually like during the summertime, and it's more kind of like a blockbuster kind of deal in like that kind of perspective where it's like,
Stephen
let's
King's
go get scared
sort of
or whatever. Yeah, kind of like that. So just kind of from that perspective or whatever. But so that might make it seem like maybe why these movies, it's like not straight horror, like I guess, like you were saying, like Thirst, it's like, oh, it's kind of like this romantic thing, but it's also like really gory. So it's not like, let's make this like horror piece. It's just like kind of, I don't know, it's more blended in, I guess.
Yeah, that's something about a lot of foreign cinema is they try and incorporate like a wide variety of like emotions.
Yeah.
So it can be funny, it can be sweet, it can be romantic, it can be scary, it can be whatever, all at the same time.
Well, those are the pieces that ground your horror element. It's like it's pretty common in American cinema. We saw like Feast last week was a movie that was centralized on being about the horror, about the gore, about, all the things that you consider like that we consider like horror trappings. But, and I would say a majority of horror movies, even the bad ones, they're trying to ground it in something else. Like you need something else to sort of tether it to the ground. But yeah, so like you have like a character that you can relate to, or you have a situation that you can relate to, or whatever.
Yeah.
But so yeah,
So-
that's.
So yeah,
Do you have like I kind of want you to like guide us through the night here a little bit and kind of like
what? So
I don't know.
I wanted to do it because Bob was texting me this week because I've been talking about the Wailing, and he like texted me some of his like first impressions. We never try to talk too much, but I loved it because it was like that. Like I hope I can like bring some shit to you today to where you're like, oh,
I hope so,
shit. Like,
All right.
what the fuck?
So you want us to go first?
Well, I mean, let's like talk through like the basic like story.
Okay.
And to me, I want to preface this by saying I like mentioned The Witch in that like I have come to like these type of movies. It is long, but what this does is it like we stay with this character and we really kind of like relate to him. And what ends up playing out is it's like Rob said, it's a little bit of like a whodunit or like, what's going on.
Yeah.
And at the end, there's kind of like this bit like the ending. It's like all kind of leading to this ending. It's like all kind of leading to this big like kind of crescendo, which is kind of like the same thing with The Witch. Like when I first saw The Witch, I was like, okay, I'm digging this movie, but like the ending is what really like blew my fucking like load. And like this movie, I feel like it kind of does that thing too. Like it all like leads up and then it's got the ending and then you're like, oh, so this movie is kind of like that. It's a big build. So yeah, we have this
2 hour build.
2.5.
We
have this police officer who we follow. He's like the main guy, and he's just a regular dude. He's in like a smaller, like kind of rural village of South Korea, and it's like present day or whatever. And his name is Jung-gu, and he's just a regular police officer. And people are starting to get like murdered. Which, let me go ahead and preface this like as a cultural thing. I can only imagine, especially like in rural Korea, like these horrifying murders start happening and they make little comments about it. Like, what kind of sick fuck would like murder somebody? Dude, I don't know. I don't have the exact numbers, but I gotta imagine like the murder rate in Korea is like crazy low. It's gotta be like crazy low. So just like also keeping that in mind, like from a rural cop, like, and he's just like a regular cop, like he's used to like maybe like even like thievery has to be like super low in Korea. So I don't know what a typical cop's day, especially in rural Korea, is like, but it's probably really chill. So like they start getting these like gruesome murders where a member of a family will literally like murder the entire family, and they like are showing up to the scene and kind of dealing with that. So that's kind of like a big shock too. Just like murder in general, and like these horrifying murders where people are like stabbed to death and like fucking gutted and shit.
What's the first one we see? I'm trying to think.
The first one we see is this guy. I think he like kills his wife, and like they're like holding somebody back, and it's like, I'm his uncle. Right. He's like, how could you do this? Yeah. And they're like, oh, he's high on mushrooms, or their whole thing is like he's high on mushrooms. And they even get the coroner's report back, and they're like, yeah, it was all up in his blood. He was like had all this like mushrooms in him, and they're like, oh shit, he must have just been high. But then it just like keeps happening again and again and again. And it starts like kind of picking up to the point to where his daughter gets like possessed. So he has a young daughter, and she's probably around like, I don't know, nine or 10.
Something.
Hyunjin. Hyunjin is her name.
Which,
so it's just. Yeah,
like, they're like little like family dynamic to start with is fucking adorable. Like it's like
it is,
they have like a nice fun like family or whatever, and then when she gets taken, it's actually like pretty impactful, I would say, because like I don't know, they have pretty I don't want to say idyllic, because they have a little minor amount of like just general family tension going on about sleeping in late and things like that, but then it gets sort of like. And like maybe it's because I'm American and I'm acclimating to this sort of like different form of like family togetherness life or whatever. But like once I like just start to get settled in that, she becomes like apparently possessed in some capacity. So like that takeover of her, like, or that like sort of infiltration, or that viral hostile takeover of her personality is kind of painful to watch. It was really
It
effective.
really is. And another goddamn these fucking like actors, like we talked about,
kills it.
Train to Busan or whatever. This girl kills it. This little girl like crushes this possession role, and like to the point where it's almost like this is like the Korean Exorcist or something. Like she fucking like there's some like brutal like scenes with her like where she has to be like possessed, and she like does an amazing job, I think.
They have this great like dynamic where she's like incredibly tenacious and she knows everything that's going on in the house, which I don't know how you wouldn't, because they're extremely tightly packed for American sensibilities, I would say.
Yeah.
But like, you know, like the mom and the dad are like sneaking off to the car to bone it out and things like that. And she knows all about it, and she's like, it's fine, I'm 7, whatever. And it's like it's very precocious and fun.
But it's really sweet. Like the dad has some moments with the kid, and like you really feel it feels genuine, and it feel like you said, like once it hits, they spend just enough time to when it hits you like feel it kind of in your gut. You're like, oh shit, like this like
because she like that's the only bright spot of the show. Like the rest is him. What's his character's name? Junggu spends his like days like whiling away at the police station or just hanging out, and he's like goes to this gruesome murder, and it's kind of fucked up for him, but he even like, you know, sets that aside. It's just very separated from that part of the movie or that part of his life, really. You know, they give like so much, because it's a long movie, they have the space to give it plenty of like buffer. And then that buffer just breaks down instantly. All of a sudden, like the way they find out that his daughter is possessed or is involved in this is, don't they go to this man's house? They suspect this Japanese immigrant of somebody like points him out as potentially being involved. So they go to investigate, and they find this room full of like token treasures from people, including a shoe that has his daughter's name written on the inside of it.
And it's got pictures of a lot of the dead people too that we've seen already.
Deeply incriminating shit.
It is, and then he like takes it to his daughter, and this is the first time we see it, and he's like, you know, did you lose a shoe? And she's like, no. And he's like, this isn't your shoe. It's like she wrote her name in it or whatever, and she's like, no. And then not only is she like possessed, it hits like the implication is that she was like molested or that she was sexually abused by the Japanese man or whatever, because that's what everybody's. Oh, really?
No, that didn't strike me at all.
Did you get that, Bob?
I didn't pick up on that either.
Oh yeah.
Really? Okay, because the first one, so the whole thing surrounding the Japanese man in the beginning is all gossip. Like it's like this, you know, this small village, and people are talking. He's like, oh, didn't you know that like that woman, the first one who like went crazy was like, when the Japanese man was like fishing, she was like raped by him or whatever, molested. Remember they had that like thing, and then like towards the end of the movie, or somebody is saying like, do you know something about this? And he's like hesitant to say or whatever. Like the whole implication is like, because he's like, did you meet a Japanese? He's talking to the girl for the first time. He's like, did you meet a Japanese man? She's like, yes. And he's like, what happened? You gotta tell me or whatever. And she's like, what's the big deal? What's so important about it or whatever? And like the whole, it like keeps building, and like several implications. It's like a sexual kind of thing.
That was completely lost on me, but that's a good angle. And honestly, I kind of wish I had caught that.
Yeah.
like as in terms of the journey, but I immediately was like, okay, well, obviously she has been infected by some sort of otherworldly thing. And I think because at that point, everything that had happened had sort of like pointed in the direction of it being otherworldly. Whether or not it actually was or not was kind of the question, but it seemed to point that direction. Like our first killer was like glassy-eyed, like full on like no pupil situation going on.
And they're like,
that doesn't happen naturally. So I mean, unless you got like instant cataracts, that's not happening. So like that dude like was fucked up, and then you have like everybody involved has a rash of some kind, which I guess it could be sexual, but it's not. With the exception of the little girl, it seems like it's just sort of all over you.
Yeah.
And with the little girl, it turns out to actually be on her legs and stuff, and in sort of a precarious position, which turns to an interesting situation on its own. But
God, even that scene where like the dad goes into the girl's room and he like sees her journal and he's like lifting up just like her nightdress or whatever.
Right.
And she like freaks out. She like wakes up and she's like, "What are you doing, you perverted piece of shit," or whatever. And like she's the sweet little girl who like we've seen their dynamic where she's like very, very sweet and kind.
That scene was nuts, man. She's
I was like, holy shit, this is going in like right.
Yeah.
What would people think here and here lifting up your daughter's skirt in the middle of the night? Or holy shit.
She kills it, dude. She's like so fucking intense. And like it and you feel it. You're like the dad, like not like being like seeing the rash and like the dread. And the whole story was like, oh, didn't you know, like with the fishing story, like, oh, she was molested by the Japanese man, and she got this rash all over her body. So that's why when the dad like lifts up the thing after they've had the discussion, the rash is there. He's like, oh my God, or whatever. Yeah. So it essentially
any rash. It didn't occur to me that where it was placed actually had significance to him, except in her blackmailing.
So this movie becomes the dad is like trying to save his daughter. Essentially. So at first, like he's investigating like these murders, but then it becomes like the dad is like desperately trying to save his daughter. And so there's like three big people, or kind of four, I guess, involved. There's the Japanese man who's like the suspect. There's this like mysterious just kind of woman who shows up around the village. She has no name. Literally, even like her Korean name translates to like no name. And then
Clint Eastwood. That's who plays that character.
And then there's the shaman guy, the mudang, which is Korean for shaman. And then there's like this priest who's kind of around too. He's like a more minor. So the big three are the shaman, the no-name lady, and the Japanese man, who also has no name. They call him the stranger or whatever.
The priest doesn't really. Oh, you're talking about like the rabbinical,
the Catholic priest,
the Catholic school kid guy.
Yeah. Sorry, he's not.
He's not quite a priest.
He's
right?
not quite. Yeah, so the church guy, but he wears the collar.
His partners. What's his name?
His partner's
Junggu. Yeah, he's partnered. He's the nephew or cousin of. Is the nephew? Okay. Sorry, you're coming in split on me.
Oh, yes, it's okay. So the basic story is. Do you guys want to give the basic story? I've been talking a lot. Give the basic. No,
you kind of covered it. So it's Junggu.
Yeah.
Trying to save his daughter, trying to release his daughter from, or like I guess trying to find out if his daughter was molested, and then later trying to decide whether or not, there's something more spiritual happening. Yeah. So they go and visit this Japanese man. They see this shoe or whatever, and then like after that all happens, after he sees the rash on his girl and his girl is acting weird as fuck, he goes back off the clock with his translator, who is his partner's cousin or partner's nephew. Excuse me. I do that the whole time. I'm sure I'll do that the whole episode. And he sort of like confronts the guy very directly, and he like. Says
he kills the dog.
He kills his dog. The dog attacks him. In fairness, the dog like gets loose and attacks him, and he pickaxes that dog to death after getting his ass beat. All the incriminating shit has been moved and or burned. And he talks to the Japanese guy, and he's like, what do you want with my daughter? What is going on with you? What's your deal, basically? And the guy's like, nothing. If I told you, you wouldn't even believe me.
So that's the first time where like we get a point of like doubt. Like he says like, if I told you, you wouldn't believe me, essentially. But he doesn't. He's not like negative toward the guy or what. He like pretty much is like calm through the whole thing.
He seems very sincere. Like, look, I mean, I could tell you, but it wouldn't help the situation at all. Yeah. It seems to be what his tone is. And that's actually like, I want to praise that guy in particular, and I'm going to do it throughout probably. But the guy playing the Japanese man, who I think I've seen in other movies, I think he was in Kill Bill, if I'm not mistaken. But he does this thing throughout the movie where I'm a pendulum this whole movie, deciding whether or not he is the Van Helsing or he is the Dracula. I cannot.
And that's the thing kind of about this movie.
Yeah, that's what's so interesting about it. That's the central mystery, is whether or not this guy is just implicated by way of being involved in something that he's trying to stop or inhibit, or he's actually the cause of these horrible things. Yeah. So, I mean, and that really comes to a head in that and that's where we first, like Justin said, you really comes to comes to our attention, which is where he's like, look, I could tell you, like, and it's also this other thing where there's this cultural fear, like, or like Justin, and like correct me as I go, but there's, you know, Japanese and Korean relations aren't always stellar, so there's like some
and
sort
also
of like
in this rural small village, and it's like they call him like the stranger, and he's like this outsider. He's just this guy that lives in the woods, and
he's
so
mentioned is like Jung-gu is told about him. He's like, yeah, I don't trust that guy, that Japanese guy, and he's like, you know, you're just a bigot. That guy's just a fisherman. Leave him alone. I'm sure it's nothing. And then he becomes his biggest enemy basically overnight.
Well, and all the information that Jung-gu gets about him in like the first part of the movie before they actually visit his house is all gossip. So like everybody should like, oh, he touched this woman, oh, he did this thing. So it gets to a point where he like visits a church later on. He's talking to he's asking kind of like the church for help, and he's talking about the Japanese man, and the priest is like, I've heard that he's a professor, like from a university. And he's like, everything that you're telling me about this man is all just like gossip that you've heard from all these people. And you realize like, oh shit, yeah, like it is like it's just the drinking buddies. Yeah, drinking buddies just talking about this like strange Japanese dude who they don't know or whatever.
Which, I mean, can have implications of its own by the end of the movie, but you know, like, before we even get to that, it's like it's this question of like, this guy's automatically untrustworthy within this small community, and then all these things start happening, and you think to yourself, okay, he's just like a bystander, and then you think to yourself, oh no, he's definitely got some shit in his house, maybe he's the bad guy. Wait, maybe he's trying to counteract a real bad guy who we've seen, this woman who we have no record of. Like the first time we see that woman, she is literally like on like they're guarding the first
murder
scene,
scene,
the second crime scene, one of the first or second crime scenes, and she's throwing rocks at them from afar like a like I don't know, like an insane person.
And she says, like, I saw them murdered. And he's like, oh, I have an eyewitness. And then she, like, disappears.
She disappears. But she also is like, yeah, he's not to be trusted. What does she all say? She's like, he's not to be trusted.
Yeah, she's always watching the Japanese man. So, like, they'll go to, like, his house. And then they'll do, like, this pan-out shot. The first time they do it, you don't actually see her. But you see, like, somebody's watching the house from, like, very far away. And then each time they go back to the house, she's always just kind of, like, chilling, like, in the bushes or, like, up on the rocks, like, always watching this Japanese man.
Yeah, she's
Rob.
This was, like, my biggest issue with the movie. So the red herring thing that's going on here. So you've got this, like, ghost, I guess, that shows up and knows like about this Japanese man, and like you're led to believe that he's a bad guy, and you're like, well, maybe he's not, maybe this ghost is bad, and then come the end of the movie, you're like, okay, can I trust the shaman? Can I trust this Japanese man, or can I trust this ghost? Or are they all lying? Are they all working together to get my daughter? You just don't really know. And then like it comes to fruition that like actually the Japanese man is the fucking devil. He's a bad guy the whole time. And you've got
the literal devil.
So the big thing is like everybody dies in the end. Like the little girl stays possessed and murders her family like everybody else or whatever, like every other like situation,
including her father.
Her father. And the Japanese man is confronted by the priest. I'm gonna call him the priest just because it's easier.
That's fine. That's easier.
Yeah, the guy who works for the Catholic Church. And he literally becomes the devil, like the Christian devil, like an embodiment, like horns.
That scene was kind of fucking awesome. I loved it. It reminded me of Haxon a lot. Like it's that sort of like
is fucking dope, dude.
Oh man, it's so like gradual. That is like the coup de grace of that character or that actor, where he makes you swing that pendulum twice within just that conversation. Like you're really about to get your answers, and it will not give it to you straight until
my question is about like this ghost figure. Is there any sort of like cultural context regarding that? Is that like a stereotypical type of character that's like watching, or so I don't understand its point?
No, so here's what I want to talk about in like just a lot of the themes of the movie, and a lot of like, so Rob was like, oh, like we thought it was the Japanese man, and it was the Japanese man. I was like, so I want to be like, is it the Japanese man? So like he becomes the devil, and so Rob's like, it's the Japanese man, but really, like, is it the Japanese man? I think that's like the question I want to like bring up, and like some things I want to point out, that it's like not the Japanese man, and then also the real point after that. But to start that off, I want to say, like, this movie is purposefully, I think, filled with so many dichotomies. You have this pull between, and we'll talk about like young and old. So you have Jungkook is like the middle. He is just the medium. He's just a regular dude or whatever. And he is always influenced upon by things like young and old, Christian, and like shamanism, which is like kind of like based in Buddhism or whatever. You have this constant thing of light and dark, literally all white or all black throughout this whole movie. You have the Japanese, Korean influences. You have this Western / Eastern, like even in the medicine, they go to the doctor, then they go to the acupuncture. Like he is constantly in the middle, and he is constantly influenced between like two dichotomies always in this movie. And I want to like talk about some of those. So the big one is like the Japanese man and this woman or whatever. So Rob thinks it's like, oh, it's like the Japanese man or whatever. But some of the things, okay, so I guess the argument can be made, it's not the Japanese man. It's actually the woman. It's actually, she is the bad guy or whatever. And she wins in the end. And one influence of that is, so another aspect we didn't talk about is the dead coming back to life, I guess.
Right. Yeah.
So there's this one specific scene where it's these two scenes where the shaman is trying to exorcise the girl or whatever, essentially. But at the same time, the Japanese man is trying to do this. He's doing his own ritual. And what it implies is first he goes and he sees a dead body and it's in a truck, and he looks very troubled by it. Like he's like, oh shit. He immediately like goes and gets his supplies and starts doing this ritual. But his ritual is stopped by the shaman's ritual. It stops him or whatever. So it implies the way it's cut. And so he doesn't get to finish his ritual. And as a result, we see this corpse come back to life as if it were a zombie, okay? And so later on, Jungkook gets this gang of people to like go, like, we're gonna go fuck up the Japanese dude. And they kill him. They kill the Japanese guy. And it is not until the Japanese man has been killed that then later on in the movie he becomes the devil. And so is it the point of like, is the Japanese man the person who's fighting this thing? He has pictures of these dead people, but this is the first time we've seen one of the corpses come back to life. So is it the Japanese man who's doing this ritual that is keeping this spirit from possessing dead corpses and bringing them back to life? And it's not until the Japanese man is killed that he then reveals himself to be the devil. Like, so like is the spirit showing dominance in like, I beat the shaman who's like trying to fight me, and like taking over his body after he's been killed by the mob of like guys or whatever. And there's like several things to like show like how it like kind of builds to that. So you're like, oh, it was the Japanese man. But in the end, the lady, you're like, oh, he had all these pictures or whatever. But in the lady, she's wearing possessions from all of the dead people throughout the film. So we see there was this lady and she's like wearing a shawl, and then we even see what's her name, the little girl's like hairpin, and like she's wearing the dude's jacket. And even Jungkook like has this moment of like where he's like, I can't trust you, because he sees all of these dead people's possessions that she's wearing or whatever. So then it becomes like, who was it? Was it really the woman? Was it the shaman? Because then the shaman does like some sketchy shit, but then like she makes the shaman, the spirit lady makes the shaman like puke blood, but then like the shaman like was like effective against the ghost and like all these different things. So it's like, I don't know. So that's the alternative.
Yeah, I was gonna say. So let's go through like at least for my sake, like I want to go through what I took from the end of this in terms of like who was responsible, who's doing what the roles were.
Yeah.
Like, and I think this is what you're describing as sort of like the baseline opinion. But it seemed like to me, like obviously we obviously know in some way our Japanese man winds up being the devil, and he does like this amazing job of fooling you throughout. That actor does, and making you sort of like sympathize with him throughout in some capacity, or at least doubt him as a villain. And then you have this mysterious woman who is sort of the same deal, but she does it by like being sort of like hands off and just sort of being very cryptic. He seems very human, but he's the devil. She seems very inhuman, but she's an angel, and that's sort of like how things end up lying. I took it to be sort of like the shaman and the devil were in league together. The shaman being sort of like he's just a Pharisee. He's just out there like pretending like he's solving the problems when he's actually contributing to them in some capacity. He got interrupted in his ritual. Maybe his ritual was a death ritual for one of the people in the house, one of the family members, as opposed to for the devil. But we saw the devil like take damage from it, or take damage from something. Like he was hurting by the end of that whole ceremony battle scene, which was awesome, by the way. That whole like those two, that battling shaman, battling rituals. I thought that was really well done, and it reminded me a little bit of Suspiria 2019 or 2018.
I want to point that out too, because that's another, like the way it's misled is right after that we think like, oh, like the shaman's doing his ritual, which is fucking awesome, by the way. And that whole scene, and then the Japanese man drops. And then after that, we see like the woman show up. So the whole thing is like, oh, the old man has been like, defeated or whatever. But then like the woman shows up at the old man's house, as she always does, like watching him, like creeping on him or whatever. And she doesn't show up until Jong-gu stops the ritual. So Jong-gu's like, stop the ritual, like, oh, you're gonna kill my daughter. And then the Japanese woman, isn't then the woman shows up. So it's like, okay, well, was the ritual like keeping the woman back, or was it keeping like, or did it? And so you don't know, like, okay, was it the one? So the ritual stops, and you're like, okay, see, it's stopping the Japanese man, but you're like, is it the woman? Like, there's so many things too.
So why the hell would the Japanese man just turn into the devil at the end? Like, so he dies.
If he's not the bad guy, why is he the devil?
Yeah, why has he become the devil? Like, why has he become the possession? Point? And I think, so another thing is, so the point, so I wanted to bring up some things to where like, maybe it isn't like the doubt, maybe it isn't the Japanese man, maybe it's the woman. And another thing to point out too is they never really bring it back, but the first guy, they're like, oh yeah, they sent us back the blood work. He was like filled with like mushrooms or whatever, like they were like, oh, he's high or whatever. And another like distinction, another kind of dichotomy between these things, which I think is like a metaphor for something, or like alluding to something else, is the woman, she always uses like herbs. So she's like, I set a trap for the guy or whatever. And you always see it's like these herbs combined, where the Japanese man is always represented as like he's always devouring like raw meat or whatever. And I think it's like this allusion to like Cain and Abel or whatever, because Cain was always like, they did a sacrifice to God where like Abel sacrificed meat and Cain sacrificed like his he was a farmer and sacrificed like vegetables, and like God found it displeasing or whatever. So I think that's like another thing. But what I think the thing that I think is important, I wanted to show that like I think it could be the woman, but what I think is really important is that you don't know, you can't know. And the whole thing is like Jong-gu is our guy that we follow and we sympathize with him, and he is the medium. And like 3 or 4 times, I think, everything is influenced on him. So even like his mother is like, we need to call the shaman. His partner is like, I brought the priest. Like everything is influenced on him. And several times throughout the movie, the shaman tells him, no matter what happens, you need to believe in me and do not interrupt my ritual. This is going to be a crazy ritual. Don't interrupt it. He interrupts it. He then goes to seek the Catholic Church for help, and he says, you need to trust the doctors. Everything, like, you're going after this witch hunt of the devil, you need to trust the doctors or whatever. He doesn't do that. The woman tells him, like, you need to trust me, because I am setting a trap, and if you go, and he doesn't do that, or the trap's in. And I think the thing is like sympathizing with Jung-Gu, and like I feel like it's this, I can talk about it more from my perception of a cultural representation of like, and how it got there. But I think the thing is, like, he doesn't know. And the tragedy, is everybody's trying to influence him, and he just wants to do what's best for his daughter, and he's trying to do that, and he is pulled in a million different directions, and he has no identity. Like, he himself is not Catholic. He himself is not necessarily like devoted to this like shamanistic, like Buddhist, like religion. And everything is influence on him, and he's just trying to be a regular guy. And that's who we follow. That's who we sympathize with. And at every turn, he feels betrayed or misled, and it ends up like killing him or whatever. And even the shot, like, everybody just says, trust me, trust me, trust me, trust me. And at every turn, it gets worse and worse and worse, to the point where his daughter like kills his entire family or whatever.
Man, I see what you're saying. To the end that, like, you know, we're talking about who's culpable, and like, I think like I mean, it's pretty obvious that the reason that he, you know, sort of, that those things are thrust upon him, people are giving him all kinds of different advice, he's taking all of it, and they're all letting him down a little bit. I mean, he's our pivot character. He's the person that we're supposed to identify with as people who wouldn't know what to do when our daughter started acting this way, or like, you know, like he's the person, like, he's going through this thing, and what do you turn? You turn wherever you can. You try and like believe in something enough to where it'll solve the problem, and then you're like, that's the proof in the pudding. But he doesn't, like, he's not sure, because like, he's a modern person. He knows there's value in blood transfusions, and there might be also value in rituals. Like, he's split between these two. That's the dichotomy. But I don't know about whether or not, like, I think it's pretty clear that that, you know, the Japanese man is the devil, the shaman is his cohort, his accompanist or whatever. Because like, for like, the proof positive for that to me is that we see the Japanese man take a picture of one of the dead people before anybody realizes he's dead. After like his family's murdered, they show this murder scene. It's like, oh yeah, this guy Jun Park or whatever his name was, yeah, he must have killed his family, we can't find him. And then it shows that guy in his truck in the middle of the woods, dead, and the devil, aka the Japanese man, is there taking a picture of him, just like he has a picture of all the dead people. He has before and afters of all the dead people in the
But he's worried, remember? He's like, oh shit, this guy's dead.
Is he? Like, I didn't
get
the
truck, yeah. He's like,
to me, he's just sort of like, I mean, I think he's just silent, and like, I think you can take that a million ways, because he doesn't say he's worried. He's just sort of like looking at it. And like, if you're the devil and like you're trying to maintain this appearance, like, why wouldn't you have that appearance in case somebody's looking? So anyway, but like, setting that aside, but like, also we see, and this is the proof, like I was saying, the shaman takes a picture of all the dead bodies of our primary family after all that goes down. So clearly,
I think that's why that scene is so important too, because he finds the dead body. He immediately goes, like, we even see him, it shows him, like, he goes and buys the chicken or whatever, and he does the ritual, but then is interrupted, and that's the only time we see a corpse come back to life. So it gives the impression, because the church even instills out, like, I heard he was a professor, and then the shaman says, like, no, he's a shaman like me. He is, like, trying to fight this demon, and this is when his ritual is interrupted. That's the only time that we see a corpse come back to life.
What are you
I don't know.
like? What are you insinuating with that?
That-
I'm not sure what you're saying.
That the shaman, the Japanese man is a shaman fighting this demon, and he has this whole time been taking pictures because it's important to his ritual to keep the devil from possessing these dead corpses. That the spirit is creating these corpses to possess them, and we see that because this corpse comes back to life, but it's the only time, and it's when we specifically see that the Japanese man's ritual is interrupted, and then it comes back to life, the corpse. All the other corpses don't come back.
I don't know.
to life.
I don't see that
And
so
it
much.
specifically shows it in those
I think
moments.
that like insofar
and then
as
they
you
killed
can
that
say,
corpse, and that's the whole thing. They then killed that corpse, like they put a rake into its head, but the Japanese man, they kill him and then just dump him over a cliff. And so it's not like decapitated, it's not buried.
Yeah,
That's the impression.
Dying, and they didn't, like, he just fell off a cliff. They didn't kill him and then threw him off a cliff. He just
they
fell off a
ran
cliff.
over him.
Yeah, they like ran over
because
him.
the woman engineered a situation where he would run in front of the car.
Oh, I don't know. If you want the ending of this movie to be so damn ambiguous, I don't understand why you make the Japanese guy the devil. I don't understand the choice.
Okay,
That's a great
point. That was another thing I want to bring up. He literally looks like the Christianity devil. And I think that's the big thing. And from a cultural standpoint, kind of one of the things I want to bring up is like the Tao and why these dichotomies are so important and why Jong-gu is our guy that's influenced from some of these things. I think it like has a cultural thing to do because Korea kind of feels like that. I was going to say Japan actually occupied Korea from 1910 to 1945. And I was talking about an earlier movie where it was set during that time, and literally they would like make them take like Japanese names and like count in Japanese, and like they would like destroy like monuments and like set these up. So that ended in 1945. Then the Korean War happened in 1950. Okay, so and then 1953, which was when America started influencing Japan. So I mean Korea or whatever. So then they start occupying that. Korea. So officially, the majority of Korea is like non-religious or whatever. Like so the majority, but the highest like denominated is actually like Christianity or whatever. So like the majority of people say like I'm not religious, but then the highest is like Christianity, but you can like go see these like Buddhist temples. I think one of the influences showing like these dichotomies are so important is like Jong-gu is like of this generation where his mom or even grandparents could remember like from this old school, like, oh, it used to be like Buddhism and shamanism and like, oh, Japan, like we hate Japan and stuff like that. And then you have his daughter who like doesn't know any of that. It was coming up in a much more Western like Korea influenced by like the Catholic Church and stuff like that. And it feels like this identity crisis almost like where he's in this in-between generation where they're like, is it shamanism? Is it Christianity? We see like the doctor, but he goes to the acupuncture guy. Like, is it this Western medicine? Is it this Eastern medicine? Like everything is influenced upon him. And I think that's significant in that it leads to his downfall to where he's just like, I don't know who to trust. I don't know what to do. I'm just trying to do the best I can. And he ends up dead. His whole family ends up dead.
Right, but that's true no matter how you interpret it.
It is.
All
but
that's
like,
true no matter how you
the
interpret
idea of like the Japanese man's bad and he like becomes the Christian, like literally like the devil to the point to where he's like red and has horns. Like, I think these things are very important, not necessarily like to how the film ends, but to how like Jong-gu is represented and who he represents as a character, like for Korea,
No,
like
yeah,
as a Korean or whatever.
No, I get that, and I find that extremely fascinating. And there's not like what troubles me with what you're saying is that I don't see how it necessarily counteracts the fact that we see that he is the devil. We counteracts the fact that we see the same dried up herbs of failure, basically indicating a failed protection spell at the very first crime scene and at our hero's ultimate crime situation, ultimate like murder. You know, to elaborate on that for listeners is, you know, at the very beginning you see I'm gonna keep forgetting his name, Jong-gu, at his first crime scene, and he's standing outside smoking, and he sees like this dried up herb hanging on the wall of the building, and he's like, "What is that?" And he almost touches it, and then he gets drawn away, and we see that same herb at the end of the movie where he's making his final decision. Basically, he gets cornered by the white woman, the nameless woman, who says, "You don't need to trust anybody but me. If you stay within the perimeter of these herbs that I've hung up, your daughter and your family will survive. I've engineered a trap. You will be fine. You just have to not leave here." And then he leaves, and that thing curls up and dies.
Yeah.
That thing curls up and dies.
Yeah. The thing is, she makes him wait. And the whole time we're also being shown scenes of like the daughter like being possessed again and like going to like kill the mom and the grandmother or whatever. And like the whole thing is like, she's like, "You have to wait till the rooster crows 3 times." And he waits twice, which is another obvious like Christian reference. Like, oh, you know, Peter and the rooster crowing 3 times or whatever. Peter? Yeah. When the cock crows 3 times, you'll have denied me 3 times.
3 times, right.
Whatever, yeah. And so he like waits. He waits till the second one, but by the time he shows up, like, he doesn't wait for the third one, but his family's already dead. So it's not like he crossed the herb and then the daughter killed everybody. By the time he arrives and the spell like fails, everybody's dead or whatever. And so she's like, "Oh, he's using you for bait or whatever." But really, she's doing this like I don't think it's one way or the other. I think the point is like, you're Jong-gu, you don't know who to trust.
Right.
Definitely. Like, there is reasonable doubt in everyone. And I think there is reasonable doubt to say, like, it's not necessarily the Japanese man, even though he, like, becomes the devil.
I'm not saying that what you're saying can't be true, but I'm saying that the movie seems to indicate something else. like the fact that he is the devil. Like, the devil can't be trusted, so you have to assume if he is the Christian devil, which is what they're depicting, then everything that has happened has to have stemmed from him on some capacity. And like, whether or not the white woman is some other evil entity is another question you could ask. There's all kinds of ways to posit that, but the fact that he broke her spell in order to go, like, he did the opposite of what she said, and then his whole family died. The Japanese man turned into the literal devil and is bragging about it the whole time. Like, those are pretty clear, and you see the shaman take before and after pictures of his victims. Like, it's pretty clear that he and the shaman have this little racket going where they're the devil and the devil's acolyte feeding on people who don't know what to believe anymore, and the white woman's trying to save them but failing over and over.
Yeah, we gotta land it.
We're running pretty fucking long. Justin, if there's like any other like major points you want to make, go ahead and make them real quick. But if not, we can rate it.
I was just gonna point out the white and the dark. So this show, like, who's good and who's bad. The shaman consistently changes between all black and all white, whereas the woman is mostly wearing all white, but then she's wearing this all black jacket, and it does this constantly. Like, the old man's dog is all black. The shaman first shows up, he's in an all black car, but when he's driving at the end, he's in an all white car. He like consistently changes from an all black outfit to an all white outfit. That's the only thing that's like a major theme, is like, again, who's good, who's bad, who are we gonna trust?
All right, yeah, let's go ahead and rate this thing. Juice, why don't you kick us off out of 5? How you feel about The Wailing?
Yeah, I really like this movie. I've come to love these kind of movies. It is long, but as I was watching again, I was like, what scenes like could we cut from this? And there wasn't a whole lot to where I could bring the movie down below like 2 hours to me. And I love that we're able to spend time with this guy and with his family and watch as he tries to struggle with these things. Because then when everybody dies at the end, like, it's a or even when like we said, when the girl gets possessed and her like scenes, they're brutal, and it's like a real punch in the gut, and it feels really impactful at the end. Like, you feel kind of like the true horror of it all. some scenes I didn't really tell. I love the shaman scenes. We're so used to seeing like exorcism scenes like from a Western standpoint where the dude stands with the cross and stuff like that. But to see the scene where this dude's in all white and he's got these blades and he's like spitting blood on them and he's like hacking down these things and like burning these totems and like hammering like the shit into it, like that shit gets wild. And I love like seeing just like another kind of side of that. So there's a lot of scenes in this that just feel like really unique to me. Like, oh my God, like I love both shaman scenes that he does. His rituals are fucking cool to me. The drums and shit. The acting I think is phenomenal. Again, I think like the girl kills it in the similar way to like the girl kind of makes Train Busan like toward the end. Like I feel the same about this girl. She like really sells the possession and like makes you feel for the family. So overall, I love this movie. I'm gonna give it 5-star.
Whoa!
5-star. Damn. Okay. All right, Randy, out of 5, how you feel about The Wailing?
So, I like this movie a lot, and having this conversation has only deepened that, I would say. I agree with Justin on the acting. I agree with, I think that the length of this movie is warranted, but I do think that there could have been trims, and usually it's not so much a scene as it is like parts of a scene, like how many shots of a girl throwing a rock do you need, sort of thing. Like I think they could have trimmed an easy 20 minutes just by cutting out some of that kind of fluff, but like they're not. The fact that they're not interested in trimming fluff is also kind of like admirable in my account, because I like a slow burn, so I'm not complaining about that so much. In terms of like cinematography and stuff, I thought it was really, really good, and like I wouldn't say that it was groundbreaking in that capacity, but I really enjoyed it. The sound and editing, like everything seemed to work really well, and the central mystery was really good. What I didn't, I wanted to also bring up that I thought this movie made me think of Junji Ito, who we brought up I think before, because Cesar introduced Rob and I last year to Junji Ito's work. And it's sort of like this, almost like Lovecraftian horror set in the Far East. He's Japanese, obviously, but sort of this, sort of like it's not so much the setting as it is sort of like, it's like a combo of like Dracula and Junji Ito aesthetic going on here, which I really appreciate. That little girl and the Japanese man, they kill it, because the little girl like really makes me feel the transition to possession, and the Japanese man really makes me feel the pendulum swinging back and forth between suspicion and whatever, and confidence, I guess, or whatever,
Yeah.
feeling like he's responsible for the devil or he's not. That happens so many times. Like I'm very impressed with that. Very impressed, because I feel like I've seen enough of like possession and these sort of like whodunit sort of horror movies where I feel like I can pick them out. And he really threw me for a loop a few times. So good on him. And I don't know. I think for negatives, I don't think that like just purely on an enjoyment level, it was like as heady of an experience as like The Witch was to me, which you brought that up. It wasn't as heady of an experience as Train to Busan was for me, since that's from the same region. And a lot of that has to do from Train to Busan is it's not so blood pumping, and with The Witch, it's might be because I'm just not less culturally familiar with it, but I think that what I saw of this and just getting to know these characters and stuff, I think that it's a really good story, and I think that what you were describing, Justin, this man who's unsure what to believe in order to save his family, like that came through in spades. So I think they killed it on that front. Whether or not your conclusions are the same, that story is intact. So and that's culture aside, like that cultural confusion on his part was bled onto me, because I was culturally confused because I don't know any of these particular cultural cues. I don't know. I think that it was a good
5
I'm working on it. You gotta chill, bro. I like this movie. I think that I'm gonna give it a 4. I'm gonna give it a 4.5. I think that's fair. I don't think it's quite a 5-star for me, because I do think it's a little bit long, and I think that I don't know, like some not the acting, but some of the characters are a little bit too, like, I think I'm thinking specifically of the Ghost Woman. I think she's just a little bit too oblique to where the point where, like, I don't get a sense of what her character is by the end of the movie. I just know that she's somehow otherworldly and she's got an agenda. And I still don't fully know. That's really the question that Justin is able to build on, is whether or not what her intentions are, because she doesn't necessarily portray what those intentions are so well as the other characters.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll give it a 4.5. I do recommend this movie, and I don't know that I'll watch it a bunch in the future, but I'll definitely revisit it at some point in the future, and it's a worthy fucking movie for sure. It's good stuff, and I would love to hear or see some more Korean movies sort of in this vein.
Have to do another Korean month, Bob.
We definitely can. I'd be down for that.
Nah.
I think. This movie's just not for me, I guess. I don't know. Like, technically it's great. It looks great. It sounds great. It's very well put together. There's like some pretty funny sequences. There's some pretty horrific sequences. But like as a story overall, like it's just not really. I think it's crazy overrated, to be totally honest. Honestly,
if the Japanese man didn't become the devil at the end, would you feel completely different about it?
I don't know that I feel completely different. So, like, from what I get from this movie is, like, there's horrible things going on, and we don't necessarily know who is causing them. And then the movie ends, and, like, you still don't really, I guess, know who's causing them, but there is this devil man. And that's the story. Like, it's just not very compelling to me, I guess. It's long as fuck. But it's kind of a fun ride along the way, and I'll give it that. But like the culmination of all of that to me doesn't make like a great movie. I'll give it to the Koreans though. Like as far as the Korean films that I have seen, they're phenomenal. Just to me, this is sort of at the bottom rung, and I'm sure there's a lot of stuff that's lost on me. Just like cultural stuff that I'm not picking up on. I'm absolutely sure that's going on here. But it feels like probably for this specific movie, you would benefit greatly if you were like cued into that sort of stuff. And I'm just definitely not. So like I don't know, the story overall just feels sort of like it's sort of wandering around, and maybe it's making a point that I just don't get. But I don't know that it is making a point really.
Yeah.
And it's definitely an investment for just sort of like a whodunit that ends in I don't know. It's not that compelling to me.
See, you like.
I don't think
really
it ends in I don't know. To me, it doesn't.
The thing to me, you really like The Witch too, right? Like you really like The Witch, and you love the ending of The Witch and stuff like that. And without giving too much spoilers away, see, the way I see like The Witch is like some people say like there never was a witch. Like even though like we kind of see a witch, and then some people say like no, there's definitely a witch. And then it's same thing with the ending. There is no devil, there is a devil or whatever and stuff like that. And really that doesn't necessarily matter to me. Like that kind of like you could talk about those things and it's interesting. And kind of in the same way, is it the woman? Is it the Japanese man? Is it the devil? It all kind of culminates in this tragedy is kind of like the experience. And that's kind of the same way I see this movie. It's like I can make a case for there is a witch, there isn't a witch. I can make a case for it's the woman, it's the Japanese man. But really, in the end, it's all just terror. It's like the family, like the tragedy of it. It's so, to me, it's actually a very similar type of movie. And so yeah, that's why I was curious. Like, you really enjoy that witch ride and how the witch ends. It seems like the devil, the Japanese man becoming a devil, like really impacts you.
Yeah, it does for sure. Well, so like specifically speaking about the witch, like I have way more context with that.
Yeah.
Whereas like the only context I really have for this is like the biblical stuff. And I have limited context there for sure. But I see the devil, bad man. So if it's supposed to be that ambiguous, like why do that? I don't really get that. But even that, so like either way you read the story, like the Japanese man is the bad guy. That's the story. Still not that compelling. You don't know who the bad guy is. Not very compelling. Like either way, I just don't really like it that much.
Yeah.
So that's just me, though. That's my opinion. It's still not a terrible movie. I'm gonna give it a 3. And I'm sure, like I said, I'm missing some stuff here. But I'm gonna give it a 3 out of 5, and that's gonna put our aggregate at a 4.2. Let's go ahead and jump over to the Rotten Tomatoes segment and see what the users and critics think of The Wailing. Take it away, Jason.
All right, I know we're running long, Bob, so let's get into it. We got 80 critics over here, okay? So let's go around the table and see what these 80 critics think of the Wailing, aka Goksung. So let's start. Randy, you want to kick us off?
Sure. I'll guess an 85.
85, all right. Robert?
I think I saw this actually on accident, so I'm not going to.
Wow.
What did you? So Randy's gonna win by default.
Yeah, I just remembered. I'm sorry.
What did you think you saw?
I think I saw a 99.
It is 99% absolutely certified fresh from Rotten Tomatoes. Critic consensus is The Wailing delivers an atmospheric, cleverly constructed mystery whose supernatural thrills more than justify its imposing length. So if ever your boy Soju was a man of the people, here it is, right here. 99.
Today's the day.
Well, they're not. The critics are not the people.
Well,
friend.
okay.
Let's get to the.
Let's
get to the people's score.
Bob, do you know the damn audience score before we start? Okay.
No idea.
I'm gonna give Randy another shot because you. All right. So Randy, or I'll let Randy choose. Do you want to go first or second, Randy?
Oh man, I'll take it at the half. Let Rob go first.
Okay. I was like, I don't know what that means.
Rob, this is the half.
Sorry.
I think we're at the half right now.
Rob,
I'm sure it's very high. Because I haven't heard a single negative thing about this, so I'm gonna go 90.
Okay, 90. Randy.
Yeah, that's fair. I really don't know, besides sort of like a few people's opinions. So I'm just gonna stick with 85. I just feel like that's a safe number.
Randy is gonna take it. Not quite as high as the critics, but it is 81%.
Hey.
So user rating
twice.
6,806. Yeah, this is Randy's like fourth week or whatever. So boom, he takes it all.
Tears in my eyes.
So overall, positive. I wanted to see all these critics. On the front page, all the critics are positive. I was gonna see if I could see one of the negatives, but it's since it's like a 99%. There's only got to be like one, I guess. So. Everybody's just like a complex Korean horror with surreal village feel of Twin Peaks. Whoa, is what a top critic says. A complex Korean horror with the surreal village. A complex Korean horror with the surreal village feel of Twin Peaks.
Sorry, one more time. What was that?
Oh my god! All right. By turns funny and despairing, this village noir brings the horror of uncertainty. So yeah, overall, big positive on this one.
I guess. Randy, do you have any trivia?
It's no vinegar hole, Bob. Sorry.
Yeah.
Take it away.
So some quick trivia. I'm just gonna kind of like shotgun through. I'm gonna try to. So some trivia for this movie. For his ceremony scene, actor Jung Min Hwang filmed for 15 minutes without break. It was one long take scene. So that ritual that was done by the shaman was entirely one take, which is believable, but also still, it's a really like just the fact that they're dueling by ritual is something so interesting to me. I like that. And again, it reminded me of that Suspiria scene with the dancing and then the girl in the basement and all that stuff. Yeah. Which was
another
the scene.
Movie Rob hated.
Yep, Rob just hates good things.
I don't hate that movie. It is better, man. Keep going.
Moving forward, according to director Hong Jin-na, this movie was made on the basis of folk religions in Korea and Nepal and on Catholic faiths. So this again, like, sort of has that sort of basis, in fact, or in historical, I don't know, stuff that The Witch had. I think that's a pretty apt description because that movie was also based on like firsthand account or whatever, supposedly firsthand account, it's like that. And it seems like this is also, or at least secondhand. The white woman collects upper body belongings from the villagers to protect them, and the Japanese man collects lower belongings like shoes to curse on them. which is interesting. I wonder if that's a cultural thing that we just don't know about. So like the fact that the hair barrette is from the upper body seems to count, and the shoe, theoretically that's supposed to mean something. The film is mentioned. This film mentioned directly and indirectly all the biblical sins, all of them. That's pretty impressive. Exorcism scenes by the Japanese.
I assume it means the 7.
I'm thinking the 7. Yeah, but I'm assuming that too. Exorcism scenes by the Japanese man stem from shamanism in Nepal. The stone throwing by the white woman scene alludes to the utterance of Jesus in John 8:7, which is, he that is without sin among you, let him first the cast stone at her. So I don't know, that might be a reach, but whatever. Originally, this film had chasing scenes between the woman of no name and the stranger, who is the white woman and the Japanese man.
Yeah.
But director Hong Jin-na deleted these scenes. He thought they might cheapen the mystique of Woo Hee-chun's character, the white woman. And then finally, this is our last bit. Hwan Hee-kim, who played Hyojin, Jung-goo's daughter, practiced modern dance for 6 months to perform the scenes of her being possessed by the devil. So good on her.
Yeah.
So yeah, just some really baseline trivia there, but yeah, I think that like the idea of it being sort of like drawn from sort of like folk tales and things like that. I mean, that was pretty obvious on some capacity, but I think that sort of lends credence to the idea that maybe these are even like two different cultures' devils dueling, dueling for the fates of this.
Yeah.
I mean, you could interpret it a million ways. To me, like the obvious way is the way that I'm more stuck to, because it's the one that makes the most sense to me.
Yeah.
Which is that the white woman was trying to save them, but you don't know that until the very end where it all goes wrong. And the confusion of the main character, no matter what, is the main point. But yeah, so that's our trivia, and there we go.
Cool. Is there a cooter in this movie, you guys think? I don't know that I really have a candidate.
The closest one, like, might be the shaman. I like every scene the fucking shaman's in. Like, he cracks me up. I don't like his whole demeanor. The first time he like comes in on this like fucking sports car, he's got this like slick ass suit on. He's got the bun or whatever. But then like when he like doing his crazy dance, he fucking gets into that shit and he like fucking throws the blood all over his face and like spitting blood onto the swords. That's some cool shit. But I also thought like, maybe he like could reach like cooter territory, especially since at some points you think like, oh, he's actually like the bad guy or whatever. Because you could say like, oh, manipulation, because then like he's manipulating.
100%.
Yeah.
That's
so then you would be like,
too.
Okay. And he has to like pay him $10,000 for a ritual. So either way, whether he's good or not, it's
I'll
like,
save your life
shit.
for 10 grand is kind of like a cootery thing to begin with.
So manipulation would be on there. His like garb is actually always like really sweet, but maybe his man bun. I don't know. You could throw it.
Yeah. I don't know,
but,
man. I think it's a stretch.
Yeah. Stretch on the shaman. He was he would be the only one that I would even like bring up. I mean, I guess you could say like, oh, if the Japanese man was like sexually like infecting people or what, like sexually like possessing them, then that would be sexual deviance. But
I don't know that that's really true though.
Yeah, so it's exactly we don't know.
I'll just go with a no cooter situation. There's not enough evidence to convict.
Me too. I'm not. I got no candidate.
The jury is hung, all right?
Hung jury. Well hung jury.
Well hung.
Gracious.
Gotta get one in an episode.
Let's go ahead and get into some horror news.
Look at that, Bob. We're not even running over anything. Just plowed us through, and look how early we are.
We're just plowing now. So there's this movie coming out. It's going to be called Witch Hunt. So it's going to be
shit.
That sounds like a political drama, but
I actually don't know anything. You didn't make me watch a trailer.
Yeah, so, where's my trailer?
There is no trailer yet.
Come on, Bob.
It's just been announced. So there's a director by the name of Elle Callahan, who just made a movie called Head Count, which I'm unfamiliar with, but her next joint's going to be called Witch Hunt. It's a supernatural thriller, and it's set in a modern-day America where witches are real and witchcraft is illegal. Witch Hunt follows Claire, who must face her own demons and prejudices as she helps two young witches elude authorities to seek asylum in Mexico. So, politically charged.
Oh,
For
speaking
sure.
of, like I said, it's a political drama.
Yeah.
That's what's happening.
I am intrigued. It's going to have Abigail Cowan in it from Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, and Christian Camargo from The Hurt Locker. I'm not exactly sure who that is in The Hurt Locker, but
Yeah, I don't either.
I have not watched it.
Oh, it's good.
I have. It's been a while though.
It's I'm intrigued by the premise for sure. And
I guess I guess like movies like that, I'm always like, it's kind of like the X-Men a little bit too. It's like, I guess it depends on like the abilities of like the witches. Like, witchcraft is illegal. You're an outsider. It's like, dude, if I had like Harry Potter magic, fuck you. I'll turn you into goddamn frog, bitch. Like, get the fuck out of here. I'll do whatever the fuck I want. But if they're just like throwing like charms and shit, then it's like.
I want the takeaway here to be that Juice is Voldemort. Voldemort Stains is in the house.
Into a fucking frog.
Dude, I mean, I'll mind my own business.
You must not be Stains is in the house.
School and stuff like that. I'm not trying to rule anybody, but if somebody's trying to come to my house and lock me up, I'll be like, bitch, do you not understand I'm fucking magic? I'll like, fuck your shit, dude.
He who must not be stained.
Yeah, he who must not be stained has arrived.
Your shit, dude. I love it. Soju stains.
I mean, I'm not trying to take over the world or anything, but I mean, my business is my own.
That's the principled stance. Thank you for that.
Stay the fuck up about my business.
Yeah,
Soju
my
stains. Business stains.
Because it's mine, oh mine.
So yeah, that'll be coming out eventually.
We have an upcoming contest to find all of Juice's Horcruxes. So shoot us a line and we'll send you a pin.
I have 69 Horcruxes. So good luck.
I have 420, but we're not going there. So
mine isn't where I have to kill people. I'll leave you to guess how I make my Horcruxes.
It's called jerking off, and he does it.
I don't want to know.
I jerk off onto a different item, and then it becomes a different Horcrux. That's how.
It's a real easy system, actually.
I know, man. You can make a ton of those things.
Shit, I think I've got a lot of Horcruxes. So
most of them went in the toilet.
The next bit of news we got here. So there's this movie we've talked about on the show before. It's called Daniel Isn't Real, and it's produced by Spectravision, which is Elijah Wood's company, and it was finally picked up here by Shudder. So we'll probably be seeing it later on this year on Shudder. But the synopsis is as follows. So in the film, co-written by Mortimer and Brian DeLiu, based on DeLiu's book, which is entitled In This Way I Was Saved, troubled college freshman Luke suffers a violent family trauma and resurrects his childhood imaginary friend Daniel to help him cope. Charismatic and full of manic energy, Daniel helps Luke to achieve his dreams before pushing him to the very edge of sanity and into a desperate struggle for control of his mind and his soul. This has been kind of making the festival rounds. It just showed at South by Southwest, and people are kind of flipping their shit over it. Especially this coming off the heels of Mandy, which is the most recent Spectravision joint. I'm definitely looking forward to it, man. I'm hoping it's another banger like Mandy was.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's the thing about the festivals is it's like if it's getting buzz, like there's got to be like reason, you know. It's not like it's not like critics being like, oh, you know, or whatever. It's like people have now seen this movie and they're like saying things about it. So it's
I feel like it's more likely for a movie that is good to be ignored at a festival than a good movie to be ignored at a festival. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I think so.
I hear you.
It's like I think like a movie can be overlooked at a festival.
Sure. Yeah.
But if somebody's saying it's good from a festival, then there's probably a good reason for it.
Yeah,
it probably doesn't.
They probably
suck.
have a reason for it.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
It's probably at least got a
rating
feature.
Unless you're Bob and you don't like Suspiria, but you like Hellboy, then it might suck.
Oh man!
This
big vinegar stroke here.
We're not getting into this. I'm not taking the bait. So yeah, we'll probably.
At least you like Bon Mi though.
Right. We'll probably be getting that. I imagine around spooky time on Shudder, if I had to guess. If I was a betting man, so keep your eye out for that. Okay. So I can't remember if we mentioned this or not on the show before, but they're making another Ghostbusters movie that's going to be a direct sequel to the original movies. Yeah, exactly. So the latest news is that Paul Rudd was cast to be in this Ghostbusters movie that's coming out next year. The tentative title is just Ghostbusters 2020, and Jason Reitman's coming back to direct it. In addition to that, the only thing that we know for sure, it's also got Finn Wolfhard in it, which, duh, why not? McKenna Grace, Carrie Coon, and Sigourney Weaver's coming back as well. So yeah, July 10th, 2020 is the release date. Do you guys give even the slightest shit about this?
Nope. Same as the last one.
Me either, man.
Yeah, I brought it up before. Like, at this point, it's literally like I had said it before, it's not like a Lord of the Rings type situation, or even like a Game of Thrones where like this world has been created that needs to be explored. It's like it's New York in the 80s, and there's cartoon ghosts. Like, let it be. Like, just let it fucking be. It's like just a complete obvious cash grab.
And I mean, I was a big fan of the cast of the first one, but I didn't have any real faith in it. And it turns out that faith was properly not placed there. And that's pretty much where we're headed with this. As much as I love Paul Rudd, as much as I love like all those people you mentioned, it's not necessary, and it's especially because it's so quickly after the bomb of the last one. Like it just feels so cheap and so like I just feel data mined just by its very existence.
Yeah,
I feel like somebody knows that we all like the Ghostbusters, and they have to capitalize on that knowledge, whether or not we want to be capitalized, whether or not it's like worthwhile or not, it doesn't matter. They just have to make that fucking dough.
I was actually more excited about the last one that they did, which I didn't really like that much. But this, just don't do it. Like, stop. Like, how many times? I'm like,
Rob's getting so worked up, he's knocking his mic around.
How many times are you gonna go back to you didn't like that one? What about this one? Oh, that one didn't work.
That's
like
I guess it's true. It's like
we'll do another one.
It's been like 2-3 years. It's just like, we're just gonna keep doing it until you come to the movie.
Well, I mean, how many goddamn Spider-Man reboots have there been? This is what like comic book movies have wrought upon us. You can just reboot with impunity, and nobody gives the singlest flying fuck except for people who are like deeply invested in that particular property. The rest of us are left to be like, well, when it comes out, if somebody I respect tells me that it's worth watching, I'll consider it. Yeah. And that's like the maximum that you can hope for. It's just they know there's a base, and those people are going to pay for it, and hopefully it's good enough to where other people will pay for it too. They know it. And so they're just throwing all their fucking eggs in these baskets. They're making them, and there's nothing you can do to stop them. It's a plague. It's a fucking plague.
You gotta pander to your base, and then you'll win. That's all you gotta do.
So you guys are getting into voting season, huh?
Yes, it's already great.
It's already
the best time of my life.
I envy you.
The next bit of horror news that we're going to be talking about here. So Horror Noir was this documentary that hit Shudder earlier this year in February that basically showcased black horror movie, like the history of black horror movies. And they're coming back with a new documentary that's going to basically be doing something similar, but it's going to be covering the history of queer influenced horror movies.
Nice.
So this is going to be like all about LGBTQ plus horror history.
Is it 99% about Nightmare 2, Freddy's Dead?
Right. See, when I first saw the headline, I was like, oh, so that's all about Nightmare 2. Like that's
it's 100% about Nightmare 2.
But there's so this is going to be brought to us by director Sam Weinman, and he goes on to say the film will examine the coded, sometimes problematic depiction of LGBTQ characters in films like Sleepaway Camp.
Sleepaway Camp. I was gonna say they're gonna
I
definitely.
was about to say, wait a second,
Camp.
spoiler! Don't like mess anything up.
No. High Tension and Jennifer's Body, etc., etc. It's going to chart the course of queer subjects and creators in the horror genre from the silent era through present day, much like horror noir did, which that's really intriguing to me. I look forward to that. It's going to be coming out sometime next year on Shudder again. Man, Shudder is just killing it. Killing it.
Wish they'd come
specifically
to
with their
Korea.
original content, man. It just gets better and better. Like I can't wait to see the Creepshow show. I can't wait to see this shit. They're making or they're getting that freaking Daniel Isn't Real movie. They're just like they got Joe Bob.
Joe Bob
killing it.
Bob.
I bet he want to talk to some interesting fellows.
We'll find out. One day.
Maybe.
I kidnapped him.
We don't have any hotline screams, do we?
No voicemails.
So there's just one more segment we gotta knock out. It's intervention time, aka time to get way down in the hole.
Way down in the hole.
Bob, by my last count, this is the last week of June. We only have a couple days left. I think last episode we had gotten up to 12, I think, is where we left off.
Yeah, I think that's what
Yeah. So how many... Hang on. Any vinegar syndromes this week?
No.
Arrows?
No.
Or
any blue steel boxes or whatever?
No
blue box cases?
No blue steels. But
no
Randy
sparkly like whatever holographic Pokemon
Vampire Blu-rays. No, none of those.
Like
actually,
cassette tapes with movies on them and shit.
Randy mentioned Shout Factory, which I got a Scream Factory in the mail, which is Shout Factory's horror imprint.
Okay.
So if you're unfamiliar, if this is the first time listening to the show, this is the point of the show where I get publicly shamed because I buy too many Blu-rays and 4Ks.
Maybe we're just promoting all of these awesome things that you purchased from,
Look,
like
Mom,
Vinegar Syndrome.
It's sort of double-edged sword, right?
It is. I know. Bob, where are you getting your movies? Where are you getting your Bob's Blu-ray?
Mom always said you got to make smart investments, and I think you're doing it, man. This is the stuff you'll retire on, baby.
Totally. Me specifically, yeah.
I
had pre-ordered a copy of Night of the Creeps on Blu-ray because Scream Factory is putting out a collector's edition of that. They actually had a really baller like NECA figure of Tom Atkins' character that you could also buy, which I did not because I don't collect action figures and shit like that. But they had a
man of principles.
No, that's just too much. It's cool. It's very cool.
That is too much.
I do think it's very cool, but and it's specifically for Scream Factory, by the way. You can only buy that figure through their website when you get the movie, should you choose to do so. So it's like limited edition and whatnot. But anyway, I got that. That movie's fucking baller.
The Creeps is dope.
Shouts out to Chad, by the way, for picking that movie because we'd never seen it before. Yeah, he picked it on our Patreon page for us to watch last year, and man, that movie's fucking dope.
It is good.
So I picked that up, and I also picked up Thirst, which I already talked about, but that was put out by Kino Lorber on Blu-ray finally on the stateside anyway. So I upgraded from DVD to Blu-ray. That movie's dope. Watch it.
You got a lot of outlets, Bob. See, I'm just helping, people get familiar with what's out there, what's on a limited run right now. Maybe they can capitalize like your boy Bob. But we did in the month. Do
not put your money in the bank. Put it in the Vinegar Syndrome.
So I think we capped out at 14 for June. We're going to see if Bob is going to reach that jet ski. We're going to have like an averaged out, by the end of the year.
Jet ski's probably worth about 25 vinegar holes. So
we'll see if Bob could have bought a brand new Sea-Doo by the end of 2019. You could have been a proud Sea-Doo owner, maybe, Bob. We'll see.
Yeah, if
We're also Patreon tier taking bets on highs and lows of if Bob is going
the over under.
could afford a Sea-Doo by the end of this year with all his vinegar holes.
Oh, we're going over. I'll bet you can afford a Sea-Doo and a life vest. I'll bet.
It doesn't come with one?
Nope.
No,
I don't know.
Of course not. Scream Factory did announce today a couple things they're putting out in October. They're putting out the Omen collection, like all 5 Omen movies, including the remake of the original. Oh. And they're also putting out a collector's edition of the Blob, the 80s version of the Blob, which is pretty dope. So,
So July, we're up to 2.
So how many copies? 12, 13?
That's no, just that's October. Okay, all right.
All right, so it's June
like
28th, and we're already up to 2 for July.
No, Justin, incorrect. July.
Yeah.
So
July. So everyone get excited. You boys coming in for a live show.
That's right. Yeah, Justin's gonna be
flying. So Rob, get excited.
Yeah. So to clarify, Justin's not gonna be in town for our live show. Andy, however, will be in town for our live show. Justin's just gonna be in town hanging out for a week.
To do a show live.
In my dining room. We're gonna be recording in my dining room.
Live from Rob's dining room.
See, Juice was going to be on the live stage show, but they decided that it's more valuable to remain nude for their recordings than to be in public. True. So you got to make your hard decisions sometimes. Really
your hard decisions.
Hard.
#hard with us. That's going to do it.
That is our hashtag.
This week at Straight Chilling. That's one of our hashtags.
It's the most important one.
Yep.
We're gonna be back next week with a brand new show.
I'm so excited.
We're gonna be talking about Ari Aster's fresh, hot new joint.
Woo!
Midsummer finally dropping. We're gonna be chopping it up.
We gotta warn though, it does come out next week, which is a holiday, so it will be a little delayed episode.
Yeah,
since it's a new movie too.
Yeah, it's a new movie dropping on Friday. You'll probably find it in your feed later Sunday evening, I would imagine.
Yeah.
It'll be a couple days late, but keep your eyes out for that. Until then, please rate, review, and subscribe to us on iTunes. It's a really easy way to support the show. It helps people find us that don't know we exist, and it truly does help us out more than you realize. And it only costs a minute or two of your time. You can find us on Twitter at str8_chilling. We're on Instagram at Straight Chilling Podcast. You can send us an email through our website, straightchillingpodcast.com. If you want to join us on our Slack channel, we talk about the movie of the week. We talk about video games. We talk about music. We talk about horror news. We talk about margaritas, tequila, whiskey today, all kinds of crazy shit.
Yeah.
Just let me know.
We're a bunch of alcoholics.
Soju.
Any one of our social media outlets, and I can send you a link to join us on Slack. If you want to call in and leave us a voicemail, you can do that at 904-638-3231. Watch Justin play video games. Go watch Midsummer. Support some quality-ass horror. It's been getting crazy reviews.
That's assumed.
I am stoked about it.
Yeah, but Rob, wait, we've done
a little preview of Rob's score. He's hard with the movie sight unseen.
Top 10 of 2019, Glass.
Oh god. Yeah, I gotta go back. So I had my projected top 10 of 2019 on my phone, which died. So I don't know what that list was. I gotta try and find it. I know I mentioned it on a show.
Lord knows we're not gonna listen back.
Also, half of the movies that will probably wind up on my list, I didn't even know were coming out at the time I made that projection. So I don't know. It's sort of like whatever.
So you think Glass is not going to make it?
No, Glass is a piece of trash movie.
Whoa.
It was guaranteed to be
but if it came
good.
But if it came out on Vinegar
Summer,
it would be $30 out of your pocket.
I would not. I do not own that movie, and I do not intend to own that movie. It's very bad.
Put a steel case on that. It's in your
What if it's holographic, Bob? What if you get all the lyrics?
What if it's got a holographic Charizard level glass?
What if it's got a holographic lyric booklet, Bob? Are you going to buy them?
With a Shyamalan action figure? Because if so, I'm buying it.
Oh, it doesn't come with a Shyamalan action figure. It comes with a David Dunn action figure, which is just a man in a raincoat.
I don't want that.
It's really it's just a leftover It promotional.
It comes with it comes with a leftover It Funko Pop.
Why does this say Georgie?
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
No, it's Bruce Willis.
Oh, that movie ties in with Glass Universe. Didn't you know?
Why does this say Spruce Willis?
It doesn't even say the character's name. It just says Bruce Willis.
Bruce.
It's in a raincoat. It's just a generic white Funko Pop in a raincoat.
Bruce Willis. It's just actual Bruce Willis.
He shows up.
Hey man, what's
There's
going on?
no distinction other than he's in a raincoat.
I really appreciate that $50.
A
Thanks.
steel case. Have some laughs.
That's that's it. That's all we're going to be talking about tonight. So tune in next week. See what we think about Midsummer. Put your cheeks in the seats. Check it out.
I like Tiki Randy.
It's a good luck charm.
That Tiki is bald.
She's empty.
Tiki.
Oh, I hope so. It's been 2 hours.
I meant to get more, but you got me all caught up talking about spooks and specters and so forth.
Whoa, Randy.
The smelly specter. That's my favorite sexual move.
Oh.
I keep interrupting Rob's outro. I just don't want to
So,
leave.
Rob, you remember how you
Yeah.
said that movie was a little long?
Yeah, I know. I just
It's
like talking
appropriately,
to you guys.
so are we.
I've tried to end it like at least 3 times and it just hasn't happened.
Oh yeah, I definitely could tell because of that.
We
last one.
always have to be longer than the movie we're reviewing, so we've got another 45 minutes to go.
Oh God. Tiki Randy, you better fill her up. No, that is it. We'll see you guys next week. Have a fun, happy, and safe 4th of July. And until next week, as always, everybody please keep chilling.
Take her easy. Not much of a bump.